Oh, oh God. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Gabester here. This is the normal tank guide for Paragons of the Klaxxi. As always, you can click on the annotations to check out the full raid guide with a lot more details overall, but this fight should help tank players know the basics of this encounter. So before we get into the tanking stuff, it's good to understand the overall mechanics here. The main deal is that you're facing 9 Paragons or Klaxxi in total, but at any given time you will only fight 3 of them at once. So using 2 tanks, and often not even having all 3 Klaxxi require a tank, this typically means that you'll only be tanking 1 or 2 targets at most at any given time. Now, the most important thing for tanks to understand on this fight is that there is this notion of Klaxxi opposition or partnerships. So here you can see a chart. On the left, you can see the names of all the Klaxxi. Because their first names are so bizarre, I always list them by their sort of surname of sorts. But anyway, so you can see all the Klaxxi listed. And then on the right, you can see whether they require a tank. So 6 Klaxxi actually need to be tanked. The other 3 just stand there. You don't have to actually tank them. And then in the center, this is where things get important for tanks to pay attention. The opposes column shows which Klaxxi is the partner opposition for the Klaxxi on the left. So if we look at the top, recall the Dissector, his opposition Klaxxi is Skewer the Bloodseeker. What this means is that when you are tanking Recall the Dissector, you will gain a stacking debuff. This debuff lasts for the rest of the duration of the fight, and it increases the damage that you will take from Skewer the Bloodseeker. So, for this reason, you can say that Recall the Dissector opposes Skewer the Bloodseeker, or vice versa. And both of these guys in the opposition partnership share this same quality. So, tanking Skewer the Bloodseeker gives you a debuff that increases damage taken by Recall the Dissector. So you can see there's a partnership between Dissector and Bloodseeker, and then down below there's a partnership between the Poison Mind and the Wind Reaver. So the main rule for tanks to understand on this fight is that in addition to just tanking the things that require tanking, you can never tank the same 2 mobs in an opposition partnership during the fight. So if you tank Skewer the Bloodseeker at some point, you can never tank Recall the Dissector and vice versa. It doesn't matter the order that they come in. If you tank one of those guys, the other tank has to get the other guy when they appear at some point in the fight. The same goes for the Wind Reaver, for the Wind Reaver and Poison Mind. So beyond the knowledge of the partnerships and which Klaxxi you should or should not tank, the next thing to really just keep aware of is the things that are important for a tank to know and deal with. So we'll just go through the Klaxxi that kind of have some scary stuff for a tank. Kilrick the Wind Reaver, he will use Gouge on the tank, and this basically means that you'll be incapacitated for a short time, and he'll follow this up with a Mutilate attack, which does quite a bit of heavy damage. So just be aware of when that's about to be cast. You can use a minor cooldown if you need to, but that's just something to watch for. Zarl the Poison Mind is another important guy to tank properly. The main thing here is he's one of the 2 Klaxxi in this fight that require active mitigation abilities to prevent one of his main abilities. So in this case, for Zarl the Poison Mind, he uses Caustic Blood frequently on the tank. And if you do not have an active mitigation ability going, so Shield Block or Shuffle or whatever it is, then you'll get a stack of Caustic Blood, which is a 12-second dot, and it increases damage per stack. If you reach 10 stacks of Caustic Blood, in addition to having tons of damage taken from the dot itself, you'll explode and deal 600,000 damage to the entire raid. So it's really important that if you're tanking Zarl the Poison Mind, you properly handle this ability and always have an active mitigation ability going when he uses this. And like I said, it's on a common timer. I think it's every 10 seconds. So you can get used to this pattern pretty easily. The next guy to be aware of is Corvin the Prime. And He does not require active mitigation for any of his abilities, but his main attack combo is Shield Bash, which will stun you as the tank for 6 seconds, and then he'll follow it up with a Vicious Assault, which does extremely heavy damage over 3 seconds to anyone in front of him. And as a tank, this will always hit you, but if you face him away, it shouldn't hit anyone else. So again, when this ability is about to be cast, try to use a personal cooldown of some kind. It also helps if you have a stun break ability to use that on the Shield Bash, and then you can just follow it up with a personal cooldown for the Vicious Assault. And then the final important tank Paragon is Recall the Dissector. If you're assigned to this guy, you have to, once again, use an active mitigation ability every 10 seconds when he uses Injection on you. And this is the most important ability to control properly. So much so that in the raid guide that I did, I recommended that this was the top priority target for your raid overall to prevent these stacks from getting high. But that said, as a tank, try to have an active mitigation ability going when he uses Injection every 10 seconds. For every stack of Injection that you get, when it expires, it will spawn some amber parasites, and these parasites can quickly overrun your raid. They'll fixate on random raid members, deal quite a bit of damage if they get in melee range, and they heal themselves to full every 10 seconds. So they're quite painful to deal with. So again, just watch that Injection timer, use a mitigation ability, and you should have it under control pretty much. It should be noted that we found with our monk tank in particular, it was somewhat buggy whether it would notice that he had an active mitigation ability going or not. So even with Shuffle active all the time, every once in a while Injection would still apply to him. So I cannot say whether this bug exists for other tanks or not, but just be aware that that is a possibility. So, believe it or not, that's pretty much everything that you need to know for tanking this fight. Again, it all revolves around planning ahead beforehand, even if possible, which of the partnership Klaxxi you're going to tank and which your partner tank will grab so that you're not getting those debuffs, doing extra damage to you. And then just handling the main mechanics, specifically on those guys that require active mitigation abilities. So if you want, you can actually set it up such that one tank handles both Recall the Dissector, who does the first active mitigation required ability, and that same tank can get Zarl the Poison Mind for the same purpose. So if one of your tanks is particularly good at that, that tank can do both of those guys. So that is it. As always, good luck, and thanks for watching.